Okay, so we're going to work on a Gyotaku print. A Gyotaku is essentially a fish print. Now, if you go catch a fish, you probably have your phone with you and take a picture and you can mark how big your fish was or document how big your fish was. But of course, phones that do that are not very old, and for hundreds of years, or only a couple hundred years, we've had photographs. So really, thousands of years, people have been fishing with no way to record exactly the size of their fish. So this was done in Japan as a neat way to record sizes. The fishermen would make prints, and they would actually even make prints and then release the fish. So it was kind of cool. So you could do that. You could go catch a fish and make a print of it. You could go to the store and buy a fish and print that. You can actually online buy like fake rubber fish and print them as well. So that's kind of fun, and you're welcome to try it. We can also do sort of an abridged version where we just see, because really what we want to do here is see how does ink work and what kind of image can we transfer. So what I've done is gone off and gathered just some things from outside. Actually, this is outside of the campus. I just went and gathered some leaves and some plants, and we're just going to see how they print. Before we get to that, though, we've got to figure out ink and how we handle ink. So I've got everything kind of set out here. I've got something underneath my paper so that it'll keep my surface clean. I've got something to roller onto. This is just a sheet of cheapy typing paper. This is just a sheet of scrap paper. This is what I'm actually going to do my prints on. This is also just typing paper. It's just cheapy paper. All we're doing right now is just kind of figuring out ink, how it works, and what kind of image we can make. Okay, I'm using Akua ink. I picked sienna for a color to play with. Doesn't really matter, whatever would be fun. Usually dark colors are a good thing to try. But Akua Intaglio ink. And you can see it's been used. So I'm gonna open my ink. Now, the ink is kind of separated here. I have a palette knife, and normally you aren't really supposed to do a lot of digging into your ink, but because it's separated, I do need to make sure it's all mixed up. And I'm making sure that my, hang on 1 second, grabbing a paper towel. I want to make sure that my blade here, my palette knife, is clean. You could use a spoon or a knife. If you use something like a spoon or a knife, don't eat off of it again. The materials in this could be toxic. Even washed is probably not a good idea to reuse it for food. This is obviously not for food, so I'm just mixing my ink up, making sure that what has settled out has come back together, reintegrated, so that my ink is a nice consistency. Okay, and then I'm just gonna kind of wipe, I'm sort of scraping my palette knife back off. And I want to put some ink on my tray. I'm going to also make sure my tray is clean. This is an actual printmaking tray. You could use, even a cookie sheet is what I've often used at home. Again, once you use it for ink, don't use it for cookies. Keep it just for your art supplies. You do want a kind of a smooth surface. You don't want a surface that's gonna hold ink, because you'll end up wasting ink. It'll kind of suck it in. So make sure you've got a surface that'll work. I've had students use actually old plates. Sometimes they'll go to like Goodwill and just get a set of old dinner plates and use that. That works too. So figure out what works for your ink. The neat thing about this Akua ink is we can leave it on the tray actually for the semester, and it'll keep being, we can rework it. It doesn't dry out, or it doesn't dry out enough to impact what we're doing. So I'm going to do what's called running a bead of ink. So I'm just putting some ink on my tray, kind of running it, and I'm going to just sort of, just because I have a lot of ink on this palette knife, I'm going to try to just wipe it back off since I stirred it before. And in case I need it again, I'm just going to set it out. I'm not going to totally clean it yet. I've got my brayer, and the first thing we want to do is kind of knead the ink. So we're just kind of spreading it out, and you have to listen to this. Right now, it's just sliding and there's no sound because there's so much ink What I want is to spread it till I start to get that kind of sizzly sound. I'll go a little slower. If it's sliding, there's too much ink. So I want to get it till it's kind of a sizzle sound. A kind of a bacony sizzle. When you've got that sound on your brayer is enough ink. When you have that sound on whatever you're printing, that's also the right amount of ink. The trick is to transfer this right amount and get it onto whatever I'm printing. Okay, I'm gonna set this down. Don't rest your brayers like this on the roller parts because they'll actually get a little dent. Do you see how there's a line there? Repeatedly resting your brayer like that, you'll get a dent and you'll ruin the brayers. So whenever you set it down, set it on its backside. Okay? All right, so